I'm Sandra, and I'm just the professional your small business was looking for. But you didn't hire me because you didn't use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has professionals you can't find anywhere else, including those who aren't actively looking for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, like me.
In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you'll miss out on great candidates like Sandra. Start hiring professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
Even on a budget, quality is non-negotiable. That's why Quince is the place to score high-end essentials at 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Get your hands on buttery soft cashmere sweaters from just $60, Italian leather jackets, and so much more. And the best part about Quince, they exclusively partner with factories committed to safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing. Elevate your style without the elevated price tag with Quince. Go to quince.com/upgrade for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, Randy.
Since we founded Bombas, we've always said our socks, underwear, and T-shirts are super soft. Any new ideas?
Maybe sublimely soft.
Or disgustingly cozy.
Wait, what?
I got it. Bombas. Absurdly comfortable essentials for yourself
and for those facing homelessness.
Because one purchased equals one donated.
Wow, did we just write an ad?
Yes.
Bombas. Big comfort for everyone. Go to bombas.com/ACAST and use code ACAST for 20% off your first purchase.
Hello and welcome to the Napoleonicist, a brand new podcast launching in April 2020 at thenapoleonicwars.net. For a few months now I've been tweeting about this podcast and thought it would be helpful to just say a little bit about what it's trying to achieve, who I am, and what you can expect ahead of the official first episode. The Napoleonicist was born out of a couple of conversations on social media. The word, Napoleonicist, was actually coined by Robert Pocock, a Napoleonic-era expert who runs the Campaigns and Culture Battlefield Tour Company. We were talking about the term that should be used to describe someone who specialises in the period 1789 to 1815. In English literature, a specialist in the work of Charles Dickens or 19th century poets, for example, might be called a Dickensian or a 19th centuryist, so the term Napoleonicist fell out of that discussion and kind of stuck when I was thinking of a name for the podcast. At the same time, some developments were taking place on the website I run, thenapoleonicwars.net. I'd been asked by Bob Burnham and Gareth Glover to take over the brilliant Napoleon series discussion forum, which was closing down after decades as the world's great online hub for the period. I was therefore thinking about things like content, accessibility and engagement when Ross Flowers dropped me a line asking whether a conference paper I was doing could be live streamed so that he could watch in the US. One evening, all of those ideas suddenly came together and exploded in my head, and a few months later, here you are listening to what is admittedly a slightly tedious creation story. So what's it all about? Well, the podcast is designed along the same lines as the website, to be a bridge between the academics who spend their life studying the Napoleonic era and those in the wider world who don't, but just want to learn a bit more about a great period of history and would like to get answers to some of the questions they have from someone who has that detailed knowledge. I'm not fussed whether you're an esteemed professor or someone who enjoyed reading Bernard Cornwell Sharp's books or watched Hornblower on TV and just want to know a bit more about the period behind the drama. All I care about is getting people talking. That's why the website contains info on major campaigns and why the forum exists. Ask your questions, share your knowledge, and don't be surprised if you get bitten by the Napoleonic bug, because once you scratch the surface, you'll find a whole world of compelling stories, passionate debates, personal heartbreaks, and dizzying triumphs. The Napoleonicist is here to share those stories, pose the questions to ignite the debate, and introduce the period to those who associate Napoleon with dynamite rather than a French dictator. The format, then, is going to vary so that it caters to a wide an audience as possible. Some of the posts will cater to those who have comparatively little knowledge and outline the key events before opening the discussion up to some of the more complex questions that arise from it. Others will be opinion pieces, usually on topics put forward by listeners, where I will offer some thoughts in order to kick-start further discussion in the forum. A few will be based on my own research interests and will build on talks and papers that I've done in the past, which should at least appeal to the handful of people in the US who keep asking for my speeches to be recorded. However, I also want the podcast to be about engagement. To be honest, you probably picked up on that vibe already. So every month I will try to respond to some of the bigger questions that are raised online. I'm also trying to arrange interviews with historians who are publishing work or who have published recently. So if you have a specific request, get in touch. It might take me a while to arrange it, but I'll see what I can do. So, why would you listen to the Napoleonicist? Well, I suppose part of that question is really, why the heck would you want to listen to me once a fortnight? I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not the world's greatest authority on the French Revolution. I'm not a professor who's built their reputation studying Napoleon for 30 years, and I'm certainly not one of those who has a long list of publications and awards to my name. I'm just starting out, in the middle of writing a PhD thesis looking at crime and punishment in the British Army during the period. My interests are in what might be termed history from below, so instead of focusing on the stories of those in command, I'm intrigued about how the little people cope with conflict. How does war impact on those on the front line and those back home? My earliest work looked at the relationship between Wellington and the men under his command. I then spent some time on the way that the Peninsular War was represented in newspapers and caricatures in Britain, and more recently I've looked at nationalism, xenophobia and morale in Wellington's army. I'm also working on a side project to see the remains of 6 soldiers killed during the siege of Burgos analysed, with the intention of giving them the proper burial that they didn't receive in death. It's quite clear then that my specialism, as far as I have one, is in Britain during the period, but that doesn't mean that this podcast is going to be sort of sharp on steroids. The episodes where I talk about my own research are obviously going to be Anglo-centric, but I want to consider all nations and theatres, history from above and from below, soldier and civilian. Before I was a historian though, I was a history teacher. My passion has always been not just for learning about the past, but for passing that knowledge on. A lot of the work that I do on the side of my research seeks to make the past more accessible to the public, and this podcast is one way of trying to achieve that aim. So this is a podcast where you have a say, an opportunity to open a window on debates old and new, to hear from experts at the cutting edge of their research, or just learn about a period you'd like to know better. Above all, it's a conversation starter, so have a listen. Hear the cases I make, and then let us all know your thoughts. I completely recognise and profoundly respect your right to disagree with me. There's just one caveat to that though. If you can't be pleasant whilst vehemently disagreeing with me, or anyone else who gets involved in the discussion, don't bother being unpleasant. Don't get me wrong, by all means question what I say. You're perfectly entitled to think that I'm a complete idiot who doesn't know what I'm talking about. Be passionate, be intellectual, be inquisitive, but all of that can and should be done kindly. So that's it for the prequel. Thank you to everyone who's voiced their interest for this concept online, particularly Rob Pocock, Bob Burnham, Rob Griffith, Anna Vakulenko, Ross Flowers and Lynn Bryant. I also want to thank my spectacular team who work on the website behind the scenes. Phoebe Style, Jacqueline Reiter and Gavin Lewis. You guys do an amazing job in keeping things running smoothly, and all of your support means the world. Please do let me know your thoughts and comments, either by tweeting me at ZWhiteHistory and using the hashtag Napoleonicist, or by posting on my forum at www.thenapoleonicwars.net. Equally, if you have any questions or requests, get in touch, and I'll do my best to feature them in a future podcast. I'll be back in early April with a feature on a topic which was suggested to me by Rob Griffith, entitled So What's With the Name? Retitling the Napoleonic Wars. So keep an eye out for that one. Until then, I'm Zach White. This has been The Napoleonicist. Take care, and thanks for listening.